Out there somewhere, alone and frightened.
Today it's me, tomorrow someone else. The Ugandan singer Philly Bongole Lutaya dedicated his song Alone and Frightened to all those that lost the battle to AIDS like he did himself in 1989. At the time, the epidemic of slim disease was sweeping over Africa, leaving families, nations and communities stuck in poverty and devastation. A positive HIV test was a sure death sentence, as only very few could get the life-saving anti-retroviral treatment, which was available in the affluent parts of the world.
Today it's me, tomorrow someone else.
Fear and confusion of transmission was widespread, leading to isolation and stigma of infected and the sick. The breadwinners died, children became orphans, child-headed families were common, and grandmothers would care for numerous grandchildren for whom education would remain an unfulfilled dream. At the dawn of the new millennium, more than 34 million people were infected with the virus, 71% living in sub-Saharan Africa. In the heavily affected countries, the epidemic's adverse effects on all sectors of society became painfully evident, with ever-increasing poverty and failing development indicators. The AIDS epidemic had become a threat to human security and a potentially destabilizing force worldwide. Let me take you to Mbuya, a neighborhood on the outskirts of Uganda's capital Kampala, to meet some people with a story to share.
At that time, to hear that you are sick, it is like another military police coming to pick you. I got so worried when I heard that I'm sick. I said, it's me, I'm sick. How? I used to be just in the house, worried. I stayed almost for 2 years without work. I have a family. See? So that's where my worry came. Because I was fearing, how will they feed? At that time, I had no even a single, I had no where to sleep. And I had to fear so much.
We are living in a bad state, me and my family. We were in one single room like this. We are sleeping in that same room with my children. So we had nothing to eat, no money to develop, no money to take us to the hospital, and we were living a bad life. I felt so bad at first, and I thought of one thing: if I could die, I could die. Yeah, it was in my mind. I thought, but then when I was planning to do it, I remembered my son, that Emma, and my cousin Lillian. Then I said, now I'm going to leave them with who?
That was 1989, when my husband started falling sick on and off. And he used to tell me that, where I'm working, they are bewitching me. So in 1990 is when he passed away. Because by the time he was still bedridden, I remember my sister came from the village. When she came from the village, she said, now Jane, you see you are very sick. You are going to die. You see these children are young. You don't have food in the house. You are going to die together with your children. Let us go back to the village. I said, my sister, I'm not going to the village because nothing I will get there unless when you are taking me to die.
Now after some time, that was 89. Then he falls very sick in December. When he fell sick, he went for a test. And that test in Mulago, when they gave it to him, he didn't want to read it, but I opened it. I was on the veranda. It was positive. When I told him that I've seen the results are positive, now it seems we are dead. But in 93 is when these people said, how? My relative, the relatives of my husband, his follower, outside there. So they thought, and whoever died of AIDS, the wife has to follow. Now this one thought, what do we do for this woman? That is now in 93. 93. The other, my brother-in-law hired a soldier to come and do what? And kill me plus the children.
My mother died when I was just 9 years, and we were taken by our father. We lived with our dad until when he died. He died when I was 13 years, and it's me who took care of him when he was sick. So I stopped studying.
Abandoned me. Their father abandoned me. And I was 6 months pregnant. And when I was giving birth to my 3 children, he don't want me to go in any hospital. When I have flu, he take me to clinic. When I have headache, he bring Panadol. In the house, he don't want me to go anywhere. But I could not even think that the man is sick. He don't want me to discover. I cannot think of that. I was just there blind.
There were 3 children who passed away. For my late husband, who also passed away in 2001. During that time, I had already tested for HIV because I came to know my status after the death of our last born. And when I know it, it was so painful to me. I had so many thoughts, but I had nothing to do.
And even the children whom I had, there was no way they would come up. I knew that I was going to leave them. Imagine the one who was 2 years. So I was really worried of them and said that when I die, how are these children going to grow?
I had developed a swelling on my right cheek. And as if that was not enough, when my wife learned of it, she deserted my family, leaving with me with children, among whom was a few months old baby. I felt bad because we had just lost a brother and a sister to the disease. And especially my mother was so worried because she also knew I was going to die. Now losing 3 people in the same family was something very, very bad for her. My CD4 was also assessed at Mulago before I could start the ARVs. And my CD4 was 4, only 4. And I smelled grave. I really smelled grave.
That's right. In 2003, the grave was very near for Stephen and the other people you have met. They were all part of Reach Out Mbuya Parish HIV/AIDS program, where they were helped with basic medicines, food and social support, and a community of fellow clients. All good, but it could not keep them alive. The world community recognized that reversing the global HIV epidemic is instrumental to progress in development. Combating HIV/AIDS was included in the United Nations Millennium Development Goals signed by all nations in September 2000. The anti-retroviral medicine, which can suppress HIV and stop the progression of the HIV disease, was coming. But when? Rosemary, Jane Francis and others were lucky to get enrolled in research programs where they were given the ARVs. Others like Stephen and Joseph were very sick and could not wait for the drugs to come from the big international donors. Private sponsorships were arranged for them. A mere $1 per day did it cost to get them on the life-saving medicines. Finally came the day, 15th March 2004, where the drugs from PEPFAR, the U.S. emergency program for HIV/AIDS, became available in Africa and in Mbuya. Shortly thereafter, the Global Fund drugs followed. Now there was hope for the future. That is when wonders started to happen.
When I started taking my ARVs, I see changes coming, and I say, this is another chance again I've got.
So after there, they did a CD4. I had the 67 CD4. Now you are going to start. But it was coming to very late evening. So she was like, oh, we start tomorrow. I said, no, doctor, I'm not leaving this place before I start. Because as you look at me like this, I can't even walk a long distance. I'm very weak. Immediately, the doctor was kind. They started me. That was 2004 on 15th March 2004 is when I started.
Where I was tested and found positive, and when they checked the CD4, it was 1. So I was put on medication on ARVs, and I took ARVs. Within 3 months, I started walking, and I was given work, and the life continued. So I went back to school to pursue my bachelor's degree, which had already stopped before because I was sickly.
I used to advise my fellow patients that it's not all about that you have AIDS, the AIDS kills, but if I can take you back and try to share with you my life testimony, it was horrible. It was horrible. Because most of them would come when they are very desperate. I used to encourage them. I used to give them hope.
When my health improved, Richard gave me also a chance to go back to school because by then I was a school dropout. Okay, right now as I talk, I'm working as a teenager and adolescent supporter. When I'm helping children to improve on their adherence, I try to find out what could be the reason as to why they are not taking their medicine very well.
So our child is negative, and she's so good, and she's so beautiful, and everybody loves her. She's so active in the class. Me, I always disclose my status with everybody. I have no fear because I'm happy. Yeah. I'm happy, and I thank God for that, being that I'm still alive. And I know that God has to keep me, because the only prayer I ask him, I have to see the granddaughter of my daughter. That is it. I don't want to see her children, but I want to see her, the granddaughter of my daughter. Yeah, I have to be alive.
Though you are HIV positive, it doesn't mean that you're a pauper. You have to work. Because with me, of course, when I started work, I know that I now have life. I have to work. I have to work. And I have made it, having been HIV positive since 1989. Up to date, it is like 25 years. I've managed to bring up all the children. The one who was 3 is now grown up, managed to graduate.
I used even to go in the bars and I take alcohol, and I get drunk. I say, let me go back, and I sleep. until tomorrow. But now, since really my life changed, and really I'm healthy, my mind changed completely. Now I think positively, and I see that I have to make my destination very good.
I've gone back to my duties. Yeah? I went back to boxing. I went to the course. I'm now coaching them, the boys. Even I'm the assistant coach in the national team. Always, when we are starting the training, and after training, I call them to sit down. I give them some piece of advice I have. I always tell them, you people, I'm not training you to go and beat people. Yeah, I'm here to giving you some little what I know to train you to go and box, not to go and fight people on the way. A good boxer have to be having a discipline. A good boxer, you shouldn't go, you shouldn't smoke, you shouldn't talk pombe waragi, and they listen.
Yeah, my family is now looking better. You can see my wife, she's beautiful. All my children are okay. The 4 of them have gone to school. They are looking much better. Yeah. And also when my CD4 was diagnosed, I repeated this, it was 04. But right now my CD4 is now 1025. And on that day that I got the results last year from reception, I came and shared with her. And we had some little money in the house. And we bought chicken for my people to celebrate with my people. Because it was great. It was great. From 04 to 1025. And it had been actually gradually moving. So I'm aiming at 2000 if possible. If possible. I don't know if I will make it, but if I don't, if that is too much, then I would aim at 1500.
What is that?
God has given me a baby boy who is negative. I want to continue taking my drugs so that I take care of my baby on my own until he grow up. Yeah, what makes me to keep on going on? It's because of my children. They are growing well and they are studying and they are taking their medicine very well. I will stay like this until my children finish their education, they begin working, they get a job, and they buy land, and we keep on staying like that.
Last year in 2013, I took another course. It was 1 year, it was 2012 and 2013. I took a course in business administration, and I also got a certificate in it. I graduated, and now I'm owning a business with mobile money. I issue cash and I receive cash. It's like a small bank. I'm now the chairperson, stroke secretary of the group saving loan. The group is comprising of 30 ladies, and since it is now 3 years since we started it, and ladies have developed. Their businesses have grown, and it is really helping us. And I'm happy to be the chairperson. And I learned that through the business course which I did. I'm so grateful. I'm happy with my life. And now I feel I will live and live, and I'm not going to die. No, I will not. I'm not going to die. No.
Today is me, tomorrow someone else. It's me and you, we gotta stand out and fight.
I would like to thank my donors who did this for me and everybody who is affected with the disease. That long live. Because I can now do everything.
Continue, I beg you to continue helping the Ugandans. We really need the drugs. We need the medication. we need the drugs. The community needs us. Our children need us. The country needs us. We have a lot to do.
At the 2014 International HIV/AIDS Conference in Melbourne, Michelle Sidibe, Executive Director of UNAIDS, called for ending AIDS by 2030. Globally, the AIDS response has averted 10 million new infections since 2002 and avoided more than 7 million deaths, and 14 million people are on life-saving HIV treatment. What a collective achievement. But there are still too many left behind.
The people who are living with HIV, there are many. There is no medicine, there is no schools. You can see all the day the children are roaming around, they don't go to school. They need so many help and assistance.
Ensuring treatment and support for people living with HIV/AIDS has kept families together, allowed children to be educated, and strengthened the communities. An excellent and cost-effective investment in development. But there are still close to 19 million people in need of treatment. They are the groups most difficult to reach, the very poor on the margins of our societies, and those living with little access to services. Creating an AIDS-free generation and ending the AIDS epidemic is an enormous task which takes all of us to get involved. AIDS affects us all. We must work together, and there will be no room for stigma, denial, and complacency. Together, we can save millions of lives, prevent millions of children becoming orphans, support development and education, and prevent poverty for the whole human family.
That is how I have managed to live with HIV/AIDS, by encouraging others, restore hope in them, in rural areas, in urban areas, and if I get chance, really, I feel like if I get chance, I could move over in the nations and the nations so that I can preach that gospel of living with HIV/AIDS. You can live, you can win, you can really, you can stay and you can plan. HIV is not going to end today, but until when? But the people are still going on, dying. So really, let us come out and give a hand. I feel I'm happy what I'm doing, and I'm happy the way I'm managed to live, and I hope I'm going to do wonders on this world. Yeah, before I leave.
Take the message.